Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Brad Rieger. I have the privilege of being a host of A Basic Conversation, and I have the privilege of sitting across from our renowned theologian, Father Jim Basic. So, Father Basic, it's good to be with you again.
It is. We're going to do some on Pope Francis, I hear.
We are, and this is our 5th season together.
Really?
What do you think?
We've done almost 50 podcasts. 48 maybe.
To be exact.
Well, I shouldn't exaggerate, but it's a lot of
rounding
them.
up. And it's been really rewarding. We're here with the good people of WTTE, and we have Chris Pfeiffer, who's coordinating everything for us.
It's great to work with him. He's a professional.
He's super professional. We're really appreciative of all the support that we get.
And we're grateful for WGTE for hosting this.
Yes, we are. And so just kind of a umbrella statement for season 5 is that at least our thought right now is much of it is going to be focused on the life and times and the impact of Pope Francis.
For sure. We're talking about his legacy in various areas.
Yes. And today we're going to focus on Pope Francis and his view or his perspective of the liturgy.
Yeah, liturgy. I'm not sure everyone knows what that means.
How about the Mass?
Yeah.
And let's start with this. I want you to react to this. This is an article you wrote, a reflections article, and you started it this way. We can affirm with certainty and with magisterial authority that the liturgical reform is irrevocable.
That's from Pope Francis, right?
That is from Pope Francis. And so two questions. What does he mean by that? And first, why did he ask that?
Why is he asking it? You got the right questions, Brad. Let's hope I have some answers to it. Yeah, read it again. This is Pope Francis speaking.
Yeah, so it wasn't a question.
He said it in about what year? He's
2017?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was elected in 2013.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And then so a number of years later, he makes this statement.
Yes, it's a statement, not a question. We can affirm with certainty and with magisterial authority that the liturgical reform is irrevocable.
Yeah. Well, let's start with so we know what the term liturgy is. A word it uses. Liturgy, liturgy, is the official worship of the church. In other words, it's written down in books how you say the Mass and what you're supposed to do. So it's the official worship of the whole church, of the whole church joined with Christ. Liturgy, public worship. To play off that, I had a question for you. Do you remember the old Latin Mass?
No, I do not.
You do not. That's interesting.
Born in 1960.
You were born in 60, yeah. So when these changes came in was in 1963, and so you don't have remembrance of that.
I do not, no.
That means a big part of the Catholic world. How old are you?
I'm 64, heading to 65.
Oh, my heavens. Anybody that age or more under that would not remember that, yeah. So maybe we should say a little bit about that. Anyway, Second Vatican Council, meeting of the church. It's what we call ecumenical councils. That occurred and drew bishops in from all over the world. Almost 2,500 patriarchs, abbots, bishops met in Rome in the Vatican for what we now know as the Second Vatican Council. And the first document that they produced was on the liturgy. We call it the Constitution on the liturgy. And it was after a lot of debate and change and work and so on. But out of those 2,500 bishops, there were only 3 that didn't vote for that document. In other words, you had almost total unanimous vote in favor of the document. Now, what did the document say? It was reforming the liturgy. The previous liturgy we often called the Tridentine liturgy. That's the one you don't remember, but a lot of other people do. It was based on the Council of Trent and what followed that. It was, just to tell you, you want to know what it was like?
Yes.
Yeah.
This
is new knowledge for you.
And there's a distinction between say that again, the Tridentine Mass and a Latin Mass. Close.
Yeah, that's true enough.
There's some nuances.
True enough, yes. True enough. So, after the Council of Trent in the 16th century, they produced a new liturgy. And at that liturgy, how I could start out what it didn't have that we have now. It was said all in Latin, and the priest had his back to the people. Periodically, I would say, turn around and say, Dominus vobiscum. And the Catholic people knew how to respond. There's certain people listening, exactly, et cum spiritu tuo, Latin. The Lord be with you, and with your spirit. All in Latin, I got my back to you. Periodically, I turn around and say that. Some parts I say silently. I read the epistle and the gospel. Servers from back in that time will remember I said the epistle on my right side, and then the server would get up and move the book, very solemnly move the book to the other side where I would read the gospel.
All still with your back to the congregation.
Yeah. Some parts were very quiet, and when I did the consecrate the bread and wine, we would ring bells as a reminder of what was going on. You could say that very much the people were spectators. It was the priest thing. And so what Vatican II said, we have to change that. We have to get the people more involved. We have to have more active participation by all the Catholic lay people. And so they produced this marvelous document that won almost total approval. So now, which you didn't have before, we have a greeting of peace at Mass, right? We have lectors who read the epistle, deacons who read the gospel. The priest is facing you now and saying to you, the Lord be with you in English. We have the opportunity to have it in English and so on. So it was a big change. I still remember the first Sunday of Advent in 1964, was it? Right around there, the first Sunday when we had it in English. It was just mind-blowing. In other words, I had been saying the Mass in Latin and so on.
Wasn't the first Mass in English in the United States like 1947? Right around then? I mean, I think there was periodic Masses, right? But
there were certain exceptions, but that was an exception, yeah.
Yep.
So it was the first Sunday of Advent in 1964. I was ordained in 62.
Right.
And in 64.
How was your Latin?
Well, in the seminary, I studied. The classes I was able to take were in Latin, lectures in Latin, quizzes in Latin, tests in Latin.
Did it stay with you? Do you still have it? If you had to.
I wouldn't say too much.
Okay, got it.
I remember meeting with Karl Rahner, and we were trying to figure out what to talk, and he was not happy with my German, so we talked Latin. And then he wasn't happy with my Latin either. That's when I learned he spoke English.
Right. And then also, Father Basic, was there a homily in the Latin Mass?
We didn't call them homily, we called them sermons.
Sermons, okay.
They were very often, as people will remember, were on money. That we have to raise more money to do this or that. there was not a lot of attention by many priests to what the scripture reading said. It was truly a sermon on whatever was on their mind,
Gotcha.
what was important to them. And I think older people would remember that it was often on money, raising money. We need more money to run the parish and so on.
And another change with Vatican II was the 3-year cycle on the
Yeah,
scripture.
big, yeah, for sure. So now we've got the Mass that people would all know who go to Mass somewhat regularly or periodically. I'm facing you, I'm addressing you, I'm saying things out loud in English, I'm saying the consecration words of the bread and wine in English out loud. I notice a number of parishes do ring the bells at that time. I think it's a nostalgic kind of thing. The reason rang the bells before was to alert the people that something was important was going on.
Wake up.
Yeah, this is important to recognize what's going on. Anyway, so the Second Vatican Council, first document they produced, Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy, only 3 dissenting votes. So there we've got it. And so now what happens is Pope Benedict, he was Cardinal Ratzinger. He participated in the council. He worked with my mentor, Karl Rahner, on things thought of as being very liberal and up-to-date and so on. He, for various reasons, became concerned about the reforms of the Second Vatican Council. In general, he thought that the change seemed to be too radical from what it was before. The Tridentine Mass and the new Mass were seen as radically different. And he didn't like that. And he said, we have to put them together. In other words, we got to see the new Mass in continuity with the old Mass. So he was against seeing a radical change, which many of us, when you look at it, it was a radical change. I mean, all the stuff I'm describing, there was no greeting of peace before. There was no 3-year cycle of readings, In my mind, it was a radical change, and he didn't like that. And so he kept insisting that there's continuity between the old Mass and the new one. In fact, he went so far as to say the old Mass still had standing. It was right alongside of the new Mass as being a way of expressing the Church's official worship. He wrote a document to that extent. And that movement became known as Reform the Reform. That was the popular name. Pope Benedict started the Reform of the Reform. He was trying to stress that it didn't make a big change in the liturgy. There were 2 sort of almost equal ways of celebrating the Mass. The Tridentine Mass, which, as you pointed out, is different than the Latin Mass. Tridentine Mass, the one developed after the Council of Trent, and the new Vatican II Mass. They're in continuity. They're the same. So now we got the reform going on. Now, this is where Francis enters the picture. Now, Pope Francis, people, when they probably think of Pope Francis, thinks of the guy who walked out on the balcony and said, "Say a prayer for me," when he was elected. Would you do me a favor and say a prayer for me? It was a transformative moment. I mean, for many people who still remember that. Do you remember that?
I do, yes. Very powerful.
Yeah, powerful. You pray for me. He presented a humble person, a simple person. He was going to live not in the grand palaces of the Vatican, but in a guest house. So that was, but his mission was to carry on the reform of Vatican II. And that's where you get to that statement.
The irrevocable.
Say
we can
it again.
affirm that with certainty and with magisterial authority that the liturgical reform is irrevocable. Strong word, irrevocable.
Yeah. So this is his way of responding to the reform of the reform. And he went about trying to do that in various ways. He kept insisting that the new liturgy had a vibrancy and a life of its own, in a sense, that it was genuine worship. So what he said, the people there are not as spectators, they're as participants. The people present for the Mass are often, it's not the priest's show or the priest's thing, it's the thing of the whole people of God.
And Mass is the centrality of Christian life. The font, I think, is the term.
The summit and font, 2 words. So he was saying how important the liturgy is. That's what should shape our piety, our outlook, our spirituality for all Catholics today. And he said that the liturgy is the summit and the font of the Christian life. So it's the highest expression of what it means to be a Catholic believer. And it's the basis, the strength, the energy, the transformative power to live the Christian life. It's the summit and the font, 2 words that are important. There's another thing that I'd like to stress about what the new liturgy said. It talked about the presence of Christ in number of different ways, presence of Christ. So in the Tridentine Mass, the priest was present in the consecrated bread and wine. That was what really counted, and so on. So Vatican II said, no, it's broader than that. Presence is a broader word. Christ is present in the Scripture readings. Christ is present in His Word. He's present in the assembly, in the whole congregation. Wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in their midst. It was present in the person of the priest who was presiding. And he was present in the consecrated bread and wine. So it broadened out our notion of what presence means. You're getting a broader sense of what liturgy, the official public worship of the church, is all about.
And Francis also wanted the Vatican II Mass to be a unifier.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what he's upset with the reform of the reform. I mean, he tries to be nice to Benedict and so on. He didn't just speak badly of his predecessor. Remember, Benedict retired.
Yep.
That's why Pope Francis was elected. He retired, the first one in centuries to do so, and probably set a new standard for popes in general. Possibly.
I think it was an awkward spot for him, right? He had basically had to come in and redo a major policy approach of his predecessor.
But he said it strong. It's irrevocable, right? And it's official. It's magisterial teaching. So he went about his whole papacy trying to make that happen. And he wanted the liturgy to bring people together, to be a unifying source. He says that he thought that the reform was divisive. It was making a split within the Catholic people. And I mean, that's a lot of truth to that. I mean, after the council, there were a certain number of Catholics right from the beginning that didn't accept the changes. It was hard. I dealt with them. They were my friends and people. They liked the old Mass. Why did you take the old Mass away from me?
What was the draw of the old Mass? Was it the more contemplative, quiet?
Well, people are saying that now. I'm not sure it functioned that way, really. But that's what the people who, we have a lot of Catholics who never accepted it. And they like having the Latin Mass. Or they shouldn't say that. It should say the Vatican II Mass. I mean, the Tridentine Mass. And they kept doing it. And Pope Benedict went so far, any priest, like in the Diocese of Toledo, who wanted to say the Tridentine Mass and could find a group of people asking him to do it, could do it. So it became very available. Oh, the Tridentine Mass was available. You could go there. And it did draw a certain number of people who didn't like the new Mass. And exactly what drew them to it, memory, nostalgia, familiarity. What they often said is the new Mass lacked mystery. It lacked depth. It was Catholic light, L-I-T-E. And the old Mass moved your heart and your soul. And it was brought up the mystery and kept that alive. So, there were a lot of my friends, priest friends, who felt that way. I'm not sure I ever fully understood it or still understand it, but and we still have that going on now. So it gave them permission, literally, any priest in a diocese, any parish, if he found a group of 10 people who said, we want to have the Tridentine Mass, he could do it just on his own. And what Pope Francis said, no, you can't do that anymore. He took away that privilege. You can't just do it that way.
That local control, was that given by Benedict? Didn't he also give control to the Council of Bishops if they wanted to do something?
Sure, they could, yeah. Yeah.
Is that still the case was it under Pope Francis or no?
Not completely.
Not completely.
Let's talk about the translation.
There's a lot of disputes about that, right?
Yeah. So background history. There's about 11 speaking English language countries. United States, England, obviously, Australia, and so on. And they decided to work out a translation of into English of the new Vatican II missal. And they brought in experts, they had hearings, they brought in poets, and they produced a wonderful translation for us to hear daily Mass. Every Sunday you'd hear it. So they go ahead and do this, and they send it to Rome for approval. Rome rejected it. A big moment that we all suffer every Sunday from this.
Who when you say Rome rejected it, what?
The doctrine for the worship, the castry they call it, for divine worship. And they said there's rules for translation. You have to have a literal translation. And so they not only rejected what the 11 English-speaking countries had produced, they produced their own. Now the rub here is that Second Vatican Council gave that power to the local bishops explicitly. They said it's the local bishops who have power over the translation, and they are the ones to do it. And the Vatican just rejected what the council had said, just no to it. And thus they said you have to translate more strictly from the Latin. So we now have sentences in the new translation that we're living with, one sentence with 5 clauses in it. So as I'm reading it, I often say I have trouble understanding it as I'm reading it at Mass.
What part is that?
Well, the opening collect is the opening prayer. And I always thought, if I can't get it straight, how are they? I always tried to read it slowly and get the clauses and so on. So Francis revoked all that, said you cannot do that. New translations are there and have to be done by the local bishops. They can seek approval of the Vatican, but the Vatican cannot do. It's against what the Constitution on the Liturgy said, the official document signed by all but three. So that we now live with that change. One of the interesting things in my mind is, will the new Pope Leo XIV allow this old, well-written translation to be put into practice in his native United States? That would be I'm not saying he's going to do that. I don't know that. But that would be an option. It exists. In other words, it's there. It's written down. It's a beautiful translation. So we'll see where that will go into the future.
And Pope Francis was always viewed as forward-looking on the Mass.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. He understood font and summit for sure. He wanted it to rejuvenate the Catholic people. He wanted it to revitalize us. He wanted people coming to Sunday Mass to hear the scripture readings and to get something out of it. And so it's the worship of the whole people of God, not the pre-show. People are there not as spectators. And of course, in an average parish, that happens, right? I mean, when you go to Mass, you are a participant.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's finish with this. I found a quote from Pope Francis about the Mass. He said, "Mass is God's meeting place with humanity as a gift and as an expression of God's desire to break bread with us today."
Oh, Brad, that's wonderful. Good for you. What would I do without you as the interviewer?
You had a quote at the
beginning. You started it and you ended it. I love it. Say it again, the last thing.
Mass is God's meeting place with humanity as a gift and as an expression of God's desire to break bread with us today.
Yeah. Wonderful. Let's end on that.
Thank you, JB.